So to give you kind of a quick tour of where we're going to head, we're going to look at group mode. And this, boy, what a gift from the Titans group mode is. So powerful in terms of the functionality that we get as speedlighters with group mode. So we're going to take a good tour of the functionality and the concepts involved in group mode, a little bit about the buttons and dials, because if you don't push the right buttons, sometimes the functionality doesn't make itself apparent. And then we're actually going to take a quick detour away. I'm going to tether up a couple of my cameras. I want to show you the on-camera menu system for both the pre-2012 camera as well as on a 2012 camera model, because this year, as you'll see, Canon has implemented a new graphical interface on the 5 cameras that they introduced in 2012. Then we'll jump back into the keynote presentation, and we're going to look at some of the smaller feature sets of the Speedlite system, like the gel kit. And then if I keep talking fast enough, I'll have an opportunity to take you out on a half dozen different shoots vicariously through the screen and talk to you about how I implemented and took advantage of Canon's radio-based Speedlite system. So that's where we're going over the next hour or so. And then hopefully at the end, we'll have an opportunity for some more Q&A, although I don't mind the occasional question throughout the program. So group mode. This is a really powerful feature set. This takes Canon Speedlights into new territory for us. Now, to take advantage of group mode, you have to have a couple of things. Number one is you have to have a 2012 camera. Canon has introduced 5 camera models this year: the 1DX, the 5D Mark III, the 6D, the Rebel T4i, and the EOS M. All 5 of those cameras, anytime I say 2012 camera, I'm referring to those 5 cameras, and then theoretically, because this goes out on the web, whatever comes out in the future, of course. Because in 2012, just like in 2007, Canon has taken a quantum leap forward. So with the introduction of the 580EX in 2007, they gave us the on-camera menu system that we're going to look at in a few moments. So again, in 2012, we take a quantum leap forward with a lot of functionality. Why 2012 camera? Because quite frankly, a pre-2012 camera does not know about radio speed lighting. It does not know about any of the radio functionality. So the cameras that don't know about radio can't take advantage of it. Because in the case of group mode, it is only accessed via radio wireless. You hit the mode button on your Speedlight and you're not in radio, you will never see the magical GR pop up in the upper left-hand corner of the Speedlight. So you've got to use radio wireless. Now, one of the reasons that I love group mode is that it gives us 2 additional groups. In optical wireless, we can go A and B and C. Master, if it's going to be an enabled master, as a quick reminder, is always a member of group A. But your slaves can be A or B or C in the optical system. In the radio system on a pre-2012 camera, A or B or C with radio. But group mode gives us A through E. It gives us 5 groups. All right? This is where it gets so lovely and so helpful, because any of those groups can be turned on and off individually. I gave that example earlier of a wedding shooter, 2 cameras. Got lights around the dance floor. I'm in this corner, you're in that corner. We don't want the lights in those corners firing into our shot. So on our masters in group mode, we can say, let's not fire the B light or the D light. And the master is basically going to say, okay, when I fire, I'm not firing that light, but when you fire, you're not firing that light. And those changes are made in split seconds, and we can keep shooting, and those lights will turn themselves on and off. Now, they're not physically powering themselves off. They're just not firing when the master in group mode says don't fire. Okay? We've got in group mode the ability to take each of those 5 groups and individually assign them to ETTL or to manual or to external auto. So while I'm not an expert at external auto in terms of how I might want to use that, wedding photographers tell me that they like the idea of external auto a lot. So we can have certain lights in external auto. I can think of many situations where I've got a subject moving through the foreground of my shot, and I want to use ETTL on that subject because the subject to flash distance is dynamic because that subject is moving. And yet I've got speed lights on background elements that I would want to run in manual because the background's not moving and that light on that background is not moving. So group mode finally gives me the ability from the convenience of my camera to control all of that. And frankly, I can change it in real time. I say, you know what, I don't need C group and ETTL. I don't need the power to go up and down. I'm just going to lock it off in manual. And I don't have to walk over there or change anything. All right? So I think that is huge. And then finally, in ETTL, ratios, if you've gone deep into wireless ETTL, you may have found ratios very confusing. And the great news about group is that it gives us the ability to apply flash exposure compensation to each group independently. We just say, I want B to be dimmer. I don't have to think about how that relates to A and change the ratio. Okay? So let's walk through this and let's take a look. All right, button number 1. We've seen it 20 times already. It's the zoom and custom functions. Button number 2, flash exposure compensation in group mode. This is going to take your whole system and drive its power up or down. All right? So if you have your lighting set up the way you want it, but you say, you know what, I just need overall one more stop of light, then you can use FEC. And again, it's that plus or minus symbol. It does not say FEC. All right, so you hit the FEC button, and you've got that little icon and the amount that pops up right above the group there. Okay? So what you see on the screen, by the way, A, B, and C, those are 3 groups, and right now it's saying they're in ETTL, and there's no individual flash exposure compensation on any of those groups. So I jump over here on the group selection mode, and we're going to skip over this button for a moment. I want to take you basically through the high level, and then I'm going to go back and I'll push that group button for you, and we'll go down and show you what happens in that regard. So we're going to jump over it. Menu 1, same functionality that we've seen before. It's basically the gateway to the next menu in the system. Right? So we jump down to 2, and it's exactly what we saw before in terms of master enabled or disabled. Same consideration. If our master's in the hot shoe, do we want it to fire on-camera flash at our subjects or not? Number 2, flash exposure bracketing, jumping forward, sync. All right? We've got the same issue. We don't have second curtain sync in Canon wireless, even in group mode. So I've got first curtain sync, or I've got the all-important outdoors, bright sunlight, wide aperture, high-speed sync. Then I jump and I hit menu again, and I jump down to the next level. We've already seen menu 3. It's exactly the same. We've got the channel, whether we're in auto or we pick the specific channel. We've got the ID, which again has to be exactly the same on the master and all of your slaves. We've got the channel scanner. And then we're going to jump down to menu 4. And basically the only thing we're going to find on menu 4, and this is really helpful in group mode, is the memory setting button. So if you work very hard and you're a wedding shooter and you've got this special mixed situation that you're going to run into at the night, and you know that that's where you want certain groups on A and certain groups on manual and certain this and certain that, you can basically take all of those modes and flash exposure compensation settings and power settings in manual, preset all of those things, lock it into memory, and then when you find yourself at that point in the evening, instantly recall all of those settings instead of having to recoup all of that memory. So you hit the group mode button or the menu button, and it jumps you to the top menu. So let's go back now and hit the group button. All right? So I'm basically reading from the top. As you can see, radio wireless group mode, menu 1. And now I press the group button, and it's going to activate the selection. And what's going to happen is it defaults, and it's going to say group A. Okay? So now I'm going to jump back and point out, notice right above the function buttons what the buttons are saying to you. Zoom, flash exposure, group, and menu. As soon as I hit the group button, all of that changes to a group specific. So now it's asking me on, off. Do I want to turn group A on or off? So if I want to turn it off, that's where I just hit it, and group A is now off. I hit mode, all right? So if I hit mode, I just changed group A from ETTL to manual. If I hit mode again, I'm going to change it to external auto. If I hit mode again, I'm going to go back to ETTL. So it's that three-way loop. So in this case, what you see up on the screen is I tapped it one time. It's in manual. So as soon as I hit manual, notice how the flash exposure gauge changes from an FEC scale over to a power level scale. I'm now able to control the power in group A. So I hit the A plus or minus. If A is a manual mode, A plus or minus basically means flash power. If A is in ETTL or external auto, A plus or minus is flash exposure compensation for that group. We really now have two kinds of flash exposure compensation. We've got global for the whole system, and then we have flash exposure compensation for a specific group. Okay? And then the right button is the U-turn. That basically says, take me one menu level back up. So after I get done working around with my settings in group A, I'm going to hit that menu button on the right, and I can jump back up. If I want to change the power in manual mode, it's just like doing it directly. All right? I had to create the little select wheel and set button down there because the frame didn't capture all of it. But basically, I had that manual setting at full power. I want to dial it down, so I turn the select wheel, just like you already know how to do. You hit the set button, and I just changed the power to for group A down to 1/4. And then I basically go back and I say GR one more time, and I pick group B. Okay? And I can change the mode again. It's exactly the same pattern as before. Here, because group B is in ETTL right now, the B plus or minus means flash exposure compensation. And then I can take that and exit back up, and I can work. I hit GR again, and I can go to C and D and E. Here's one of the things I want you to know about, and I think this is huge for those of us who have found Canon's ratio scheme in ETTL to be a bit of a mind number. Here, we just basically say, okay, I want more or less light in any particular group that's running in ETTL. Doesn't that make sense? It's like everybody's going, that is so great. I finally get that. In terms of having to say, okay, I got A at a 2-to-1 ratio. I want B to be slightly brighter, so do I go to 1-to-1 or 1-to-2? Basically here you can apply flash exposure compensation on a per group basis. So easy.